Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Overcoming Depression and Anxiety, brought to you by Healthy Me Summits. I'm Joanna Rushton, your host, and we're being joined here today by Tom Cronin. Tom is the founder of the Stillness Project, which is a global movement inspiring 1 billion people to meditate daily. After a successful 26-year career in finance as a broker, Tom felt compelled to share meditation with the world. Since then, Tom has taught thousands of people to meditate, hosted numerous retreats, has been on national TV, featured in national media, worked in companies like CBA, Finch Media, Nova FM, currently has 4 books under his wing, and is also producing a film. So Tom, a very warm welcome to you.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here.
With a list like that, it sounds you're as busy as ever.
Yeah, there's plenty going on.
So, Tom, one of the reasons why we've invited you here today is because we feel that you have a very compelling story and experience to share, and to really share, I think, with like-minded people that are climbing the corporate ladder and that are exposed to the competitive pressures of the corporate world in the 21st century. And I know that that comes along with a lifestyle and a pressure and a stress that sometimes can really try people to the end of their tether. And I know that for you, that it certainly did that. It nearly broke you completely. And what I'm hoping to do with our chat today is be able to connect with that audience that are on that competitive ladder, and hopefully connect and talk to them about some of the challenges, and more importantly, some of the solutions to being able to really deal with the stress that comes with responsibility, high-powered career paths. So I think, maybe to start with, if we can just chat about what your corporate career and your lifestyle was like prior to your own nervous breakdown.
Well, my corporate career and my lifestyle prior to my nervous breakdown was quite intense. If anyone's seen the film Wolf of Wall Street, they'll get a bit of an insight into what my world was like. We were taking a lot of drugs, drinking, staying up late, partying really hard, and in the daytime we were trading billions of dollars of swaps and bonds. So it was pretty frenetic. There was a lot of intensity. It was fast. There was lots of adrenaline, and there was lots of money, and it was very exciting. For me as a young kid, having a gap year off school, I applied for a few jobs before university started, and managed to land this job in corporate finance as a broker. And it was really exciting. It's not something that I intended to move into after school. I wanted to do journalism at Macquarie Uni and, write magazine articles for Time and change the world with my writing, but end up going into finance. But it was just so much charm and so much fun, and, all the money and the adrenaline. But it did start to have very severe, symptoms or side effects. And that was in the form of chronic insomnia, anxiety, panic attacks, and then eventually a very deep, dark clinical depression, which was a sense of malaise and hopelessness about life. So that's kind of where it got to before that sort of infamous day where it all sort of collapsed and imploded in on me in February 1996. And that was really one of the big turning points in my life, I think.
So that's what I also wanted to ask you was, when you first realized you were in trouble?
You know what? It deteriorated along very gradually over a period of a few years, and I didn't even know that things were deteriorating. This is the whole point. We don't know what we don't know. I didn't know there was another option to life other than being sick, tired, and depressed, and anxious. So I kind of just had normalized slowly into that state, and I didn't know what panic attacks were. I just had these waves of fear and dread at times where I'd be curled up in a ball and just loathing life and wanting to sort of, hide in a room. I would have them on holidays. I'd have them, on weekends. I'd have them in the morning. I just had them at the most random times. And I had no idea what they were, but I kind of just kept doing the same thing and just learned to live with life like that. For 10 years, I had chronic insomnia. It would take me hours to fall asleep, and I'd usually wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning, and I just kind of thought all of that was normal. I didn't really change anything. Kept doing the partying, the drinking, the drugs, just living a life of hopelessness and misery without even realizing it until that day in February 96 where, my whole world crashed down. I was having a major nervous breakdown. Had to go to the doctors and the psychiatrists, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't see properly. I couldn't stand up. I felt like chronic flu-like symptoms, and I couldn't certainly go to work. I was unable to function. I developed agoraphobia. So I had a period of time off work where I had to, try to turn myself around. And that was like a crisis point, or what I call in an engineering term is called a bifurcation point. And that's where we really, we're at a crossroad of one thing either breaks down or it evolves to another level.
So at this point, would you say that you suddenly realized that your whole life was more to do with the attraction of materialism and the attraction of what money could buy, as opposed to what we really search for deep within ourselves is a sense of meaning and purpose derived through what we do and how we engage? Was that a realization for you?
Look, it wasn't a realization that I was seeking materialism things. All I was doing was what everyone else is doing on planet Earth right now. I was seeking fulfillment. And we're all doing exactly the same thing. We're just doing it in different ways. Well, everything that motivates us in all of our actions, whether it's cleaning the bathroom floor or scrubbing the toilet, doing crack cocaine, making lots of money as a broker, going to a retreat, meditating in Tibet, it's all in the quest to be fulfilled. It's just that we're researching and researching and researching. And when we exhaust our research in certain areas, discovering that that's not where ultimate fulfillment exists, then we'll look for something else. So I hadn't quite exhausted my research in the area of money, drugs, and drinking and partying. It was just something that I had to do, and I couldn't do it a moment sooner. People had been telling me for 5 years that I'm really stressed and I should meditate. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm having fun here. And, it's not like I suddenly woke up and thought, I'm being sucked in by materialism here. I need to be more spiritual. It's just like I'm having fun here, or I'm not having fun. I need to do something different.
Mm. It's, I've, over the years, I've having, coached so many people and females as well, climbing the corporate ladder. And, when they feel safe enough to share what they're actually doing, it hasn't been, unknown. In fact, it's been quite a daily thing for them to go to work and find that they're doing lines of coke in the toilet to get through the day as a way to deal with the stress and a way to kind of stay on top of things and to maintain the adrenaline rush so that you can actually feel like you've got what it takes to get through a day. Is that a very similar experience to what you had?
I wasn't using it to get through the day. I just wanted to have fun. It was just a lot of fun, and it was adrenaline. I was addicted to the adrenaline. I wasn't using drugs to help me cope with the stresses of life. I wasn't using drugs to try and get over a deep depression. I was just really having lots of fun. I loved raves. I loved music. I loved partying. I loved going to bars. I loved hanging out with my mates. It was just lots of fun. I loved the adrenaline in my job, but I just didn't have the consciousness to realize that all of those actions came with a very intense negative karmic effect. And for every action, there was a corresponding reaction. And at that point in time, I didn't have the awareness to realize the reaction that that action was actually having, which is a complete, shattering of my nervous system, complete dissolving and constriction of the flow of serotonin and oxytocin and melatonin. Hence, I just couldn't feel happy or calm or sleep well. And it wasn't until those side effects, those reactions from that action had become such a major negative effect in my life that I decided that, this is the cause of that. Maybe I need to look for another alternative. And I didn't actually go out to stop taking drugs. I didn't go out to stop drinking. All I did was I started meditating. And that's what I teach with my students, is that if you're addicted to something, that's absolutely fine. Your addiction is actually the search for fulfillment, and there's nothing wrong with that. Let's just maybe try and use this tool instead of that tool. In fact, you don't change anything other than the fact that let's just implement this tool into your life on a daily basis, and then we'll just see what happens. And for me, I didn't go out to stop taking drugs or drinking. I just started meditating. And because I started finding an inner fulfillment, I naturally stopped seeking it in other areas where it just wasn't really providing me with the fulfillment that the meditation was. So I just look at replacing rather than just stopping.
No, and I think that is a really fundamental message right there. Because I think that it can be unrealistic, it can
Yeah,
feel unobtainable,
yeah,
it can feel unachievable,
sure.
and often we literally just, in that idea of just giving something up and replacing it with something, we can almost shut people down and get them offside before we've even started. And
Yeah,
so, I really love that idea of, I'm not going to ask you to do anything different. I'm just going to ask you to add one thing
yeah,
into your day and almost allow that to do its job naturally, organically. And if
yeah.
you commit to that one thing, you will slowly but surely find that the other things tend to reprioritize themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I see that time and time again with my students. It's
Yeah.
definitely the
Yeah,
case.
beautiful. So how long do you feel that it took for you from that moment? You took a lot of time off work, and it was in that period that I'm assuming you were either introduced to meditation. What kind of meditation did you find? Or did you
Yeah,
try a number of different things?
absolutely. In that time off work, I was seeking solutions. I knew in here was a problem, but I did get put on pharmaceutical drugs with a psychiatrist, and I had agoraphobia, so I wasn't at work. And back then, we didn't have the internet. So when you have agoraphobia and you can't leave your house and you don't have internet, you watch a lot of TV. So I was watching TV, and they did a story on Bruno Grollo on 60 Minutes of all shows, and he was, they were talking about him in property development. He was a big property developer, but they also did a really small section on him meditating. I distinctly remember seeing the footage of him meditating in a chair, and I was like, oh my goodness, that looks amazing. That looks so cool. And it wasn't like he was in lotus position. He wasn't wearing mala beads. He wasn't, in a robe and had his head shaved. He was just in his suit, and he just sat in a chair and closed his eyes and did his practice. And I was like, that looked amazing. So I knew at that point that that was something that I was kind of yearning. So I started to research meditation. And back then, we, again, like I said, we didn't have internet, so you couldn't pull out your laptop or iPad and Google meditation Bondi. You had to get the yellow pages and go into the directory and look down M and try and find meditation centers in your local area, which is just a bizarre concept to think, right? That you had to look into a magazine to find something. So yeah, yeah. So I rang all the different centers, and look, I tried a lot of meditation. I just did a lot of research into it, and there was Tibetan bowls, and there was chakra clearing, and chanting, and crystals, and all sorts of things. And they were all really beautiful and really nice, but they just weren't cutting it for me to the point that I really wanted to get to. And then I came across one that was taught by neuroscientists. It had 800 studies supporting it. It was accepted by insurance companies in America, and I really felt that it was offering a lot of practicality and a lot of science, and that's what I really resonated with. And the teaching behind it, I really resonated. There's a lot of science teaching behind it and neuroscience, and I really connected with the practicality of it. And I got a very deep experience very quickly. So it was within the first week, I definitely noticed some changes, and I get that with the students that I teach today. I see people having changes within the first week. In fact, I got a wonderful email from a gentleman I taught last week who's already noticed huge shifts in his lifestyle, in the way he sleeps, in the time he goes to bed. Everything has changed, and that's just in 1 week. And I noticed the same as well. It's a very powerful technique. So yeah, I noticed changes in the first week. Within the first few weeks, I was back at work after a month or so, and then the depression and anxiety started to disappear. The drugs went away very quickly. The drinking, I probably kept that up. It's a very, very deeply ingrained habit in our culture. So the drinking was actually a couple of years that I definitely reduced it and minimized it, but I continued on for a little while longer with the drinking until eventually faded that out altogether.
And that type of meditation, was that transcendental meditation that you found has worked best for you? Does it have a name? Does it have a technique?
Yeah, look, I mean, it would come under a number of different categories: transcendental meditation, Vedic meditation, primordial sound technique, which is Deepak Chopra's form. I teach a Vedic meditation, which is based around transcending meditation. So you have a mantra, and you have, the same technique, the same teachings, the same principles, and the same process that you'd go through as transcendental meditation, just taught by people that aren't under the brand, but it's the same technique, yeah.
So you have a very profound quote, if I can, frame it that way.
On the
You're,
sound.
I know, I'm putting you on the spot now to remember what is that. I have heard you say that without mental health, physical health cannot follow.
Yeah, sure.
So can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, Buddha said, the mind is everything, what we think we become. And, our body really is a printout of our mind. Every action that we take in life is a movement that has been motivated by the thinking process. So we have a software in our mind, and that really is like printing out in our physicality. So, it's a long discussion we can have around the neuroscience and the impact it has on the body. We've got sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system, and the perception we have of the world based upon the programming inside our mind. But if we do get really clear, calm thinking inside our head, breaking free of the shackles of outdated thought forms and upgrading the software in the mind, and getting really positive with our thought forms, and clearing all that noise, which is the worry about the future, the guilt and the shame about the past, being really present as a result of our meditation practice, we will generally live very different lifestyles, as was seen in my case. These days I wake up early, I go to a gym, yoga and work out and meditate, have a swim or a surf, I eat really healthy food. I read really positive books, I hang around really positive people, go to bed early at night. All of that's changed simply because I started changing inside my head with the meditation practice. And so the problem we have in our world today is that we're trying to change our physicality. We see The Biggest Loser, and we see people out there trying to get a lot of things changed in their world. And we're trying to change over here, this sort of physical nature, change our jobs, change our hairstyle, change our clothes, change our body shape, change our partners. But really what we want to be looking at is the consciousness inside the head, the software inside the brain. And looking at upgrading that. And all of that stuff will just work itself out. If we're in a joyful, loving, calm place, all that stuff will just start to work itself out. And that's what we need to start with.
So a key message that I'm hearing there is for people to really start to work inwards rather than working outwards, trying to change what is outside of themselves, what they're, trying to control, move, adjust, manipulate, whereas if you come within and change the thought process, the thinking process, the state of being within ourselves, then automatically that's reflected in our outer world, and things naturally start to transpire and reflect the inner world. It's essentially what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. It's an effortless process, a spontaneous process of attraction rather than force. So a lot of people are trying to force life. And I myself, I still have lessons to learn. And, I find when I'm trying to force life to happen and force things to change, I have to sort of pause and look at myself and go, okay, let me sit in being, let me hold an energetic space that allows what it is that I'm looking to manifest to come towards me, rather than me sort of go out and try to forcefully capture it. And it's a very different process. It allows life to be a very fluid, very gentle and effortless process of attraction rather than force. And so I think that's the key, is to be really conscious about what we're feeling inside of ourselves, what we're thinking inside of our brain, and what are we attracting in our lives, and asking why we're attracting it and what do we need to do to change what it is that we're attracting.
It's almost like I liken it to the sense that if we don't go within, we go without. It's,
Absolutely.
it's almost, once you start to realize what can be cultivated from going inwards, we really see that transpire on the outside. So,
Yeah, there's a beautiful quote. Sorry, I'll just share with you a beautiful quote by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who says, "No one needs to suffer because we have an ocean of bliss within us." And when we access that blissfulness and that lovingness within us and that joyfulness, there's such an invincibility and such an empowerment in that process. And we've got a lot of people moving into action from a space of lack, moving into action from a space of emptiness, hoping that we can get something in our actions to make us somehow feel fulfilled and fill our cup up, not realizing that our cup's already full. We just haven't been able to access it or discover that. And when we find that fulfillment within ourselves and that fullness within ourselves, then our actions become really outlets and expressions of that fulfillment rather than the source of seeking.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful.
Mm.
Tom, if we were to consolidate the three most important steps that you took to reclaiming your life, how do you consolidate those into three defined steps?
Yeah, so if someone wants to embrace some change in their life, if they're finding that they're suffering in any way, shape, or form, there's some discomfort or some disease, or there's something just not working out in their world that could be a lot more harmonious, joyful, and loving. I broke it down into three very simple steps that I used in my life when I look back, and I can sort of really see the shape that that process took of change. And the first step is to acknowledge and decide that there's a problem and to take action. Acknowledge there's a problem, decide to take action. Without action, if we just keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, it's just not going to happen. And that's Einstein's definition of insanity. And it's really about acknowledging, hey, look, things just aren't quite right here. I acknowledge that they're not where I want them to be. I'm not feeling as happy as I'd like them to be. I need to do something different than what I'm currently doing. And taking action is absolutely key to that. The action I recommend for people is to start meditating twice daily. I find that's really one of the first steps in the process. The second part of the process is to make it a habit. If I have a muscle that's atrophied because it's been in a cast and it's been very underutilized for a long time, if I walk into the gym and just lift the dumbbell up once and walk out of the gym and that's it, then the muscle hasn't really developed. I need to be very regular with that practice, and I need to make it a daily part of the process. Just like I'm sure everyone watching this has brushed their teeth this morning, and they do that on a regular basis because they want to prevent getting holes in their teeth. They want to protect the enamel and have really healthy teeth. And that's what meditation is. It's a daily habit that just is about assisting the process of stress management and alleviation of the stress response in our lives so that we can operate from a place of healthiness and calm. The third step in the process I see as a really integral part of it, and that's to upgrade the software. We have a very programmed operating system inside our head. This programming we call vasanas in Sanskrit, and vasanas are tendencies of the mind. And we get this conditioned neural pathway pattern inside our head called a blueprint, and we get that from the day we're born, and throughout life it continues to get programmed by our parents, our peers, our social fabric. We call these memes and dogmas, and it just continually gets this software that gets sort of kind of really static. And 85% of the thoughts that we have today are the same as the thoughts of yesterday and the day before and the day before. This recurring state of known, this recurring programming, keeps us in this sort of habitual behavior and self-doubt and unworthiness, and keeps us sort of doing those self-destructive things that we keep finding ourselves in crappy relationships or crappy jobs or not having enough money. And so we really see that getting in that software and upgrading it is an important part of the process, as to go alongside meditation. Meditation clears the slate, and now while the slate's clear, we need to update the thinking process. And so that's what we do on retreats. The retreats are a really important part of the process, where we do workshopping and a lot of talks, and we really help people reshape the thinking, because it's all about belief systems and perceptions. And if we can get you to upgrade those, books are obviously a great thing, reading positive self-help books, listening to talks, watching positive, inspiring talks on YouTube, and spiritual talks, reading spiritual texts, going on retreats. These are all part of the process of upgrading the software and shaping new thought forms inside our head.
So I know that when you talk about step number 2, it's really about making a commitment to, forming a habit. And part of that has been sharing, which I love this analogy of the 70-20 rule that you have, which is a great way of actually looking at how you can more easily and effectively establish that habit. Can you explain a little bit what the 70-20 rule is?
Yeah, it's more of a method. So the 72-20 method is something that I sort of devised or cognized one day. And I was told that if I meditate twice a day, 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon, my life's going to improve. But, when he said that, I nearly fell off the chair. I'm like, dude, I'm a busy man. I'm a big broker, and I don't have time for that, Little did I realize I had such little else to do in my life at the time. All I did was get up, go to work, and then go and party. These days I do, 100 times more things than what I was doing then, and I still have time to meditate. But what I worked out was that, I started looking at life and what we're all doing, and what motivates us all into action is the search for fulfillment, like I said. And yet here I was completely unfulfilled. And so I started to break my day down, and I worked out that every day we have 72 20-minute segments to it, 24 hours, three segments of 20 in each. And what we're doing with those 72 little 20-minute pieces of pie is like trying to get fulfilled. We sleep, we eat food, we go to the toilet, we clean the house, we make love, we get drunk, we do drugs, whatever it is. It's all searching for this level of elevation and fulfillment. So I thought, well, you know what? He says 2 a day, 20 minutes. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to put 2 aside unconditionally. Just not change anything else, but just put 2 aside unconditionally. Still gives me 70 20-minute segments, which is huge, right? To go and get that fulfillment. So I put 2 aside, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. And lo and behold, I started to feel more fulfilled as a result of simply putting 2 aside out of 70. And I just kept doing the same things with the other 70. Didn't really change much. But funnily enough, the time that I was in bed allocating to sleep, the insomnia went away. So my sleep time became much more efficient. And then all of my other activities became much more efficient. And I found that I didn't have a stress response anymore. So the other 70 actually became a lot more productive, a lot more effective. And now with my 70, I produce feature films. I'm a father of 2 children. I'm a husband. I'm renovating houses. I'm buying businesses. I'm writing books. I'm doing blogs. I'm teaching people, doing corporate programs. I do 10, 50, 100 times more things than I was doing back then. And it's quite fascinating that we say meditators become time billionaires. And people say to me, how do you do all those things? I'm like, I don't know. They just kind of happen.
Absolutely. I love, there's an organization called the Energy Project. And, a white paper came out of Harvard Business Review, excuse me. And it was really changing the whole paradigm of how we think and the commodity of time versus energy. And that we've always valued time as the most precious commodity. Yet, really, it's the energy that we're able to create, and it's our capacity versus our capabilities. And when I read that, it really reshaped what I would always do, which was manage my time, organize my time, slot this in here, slot that in there. And when I actually really started to go, okay, well, how am I renewing my energy? And if really that's my most precious commodity, because it's really about what can I achieve in this given set of time, which never changes, then it's really down to what is my capacity to achieve in that time. And I love the 72-20 rule, because the moment you break it down into those 20 minutes, first of all, it's like the mind feels like it's more achievable. And it also goes, well, I've also got another 70 lots of 20 minutes that I can use. And, that is, again, for somebody who runs around doing so many things and their to-do list is, so long, and then they're negotiating the time that they have, that really speaks to their mind. It makes the mind feel a little bit more at ease with the possibility of giving up 2 lots of 20 minutes because there's still enough time left over. Yeah.
A lot of people feel that they're going to miss out on life if they don't do what they're doing and they put it aside for meditation. But in actual fact, we're not actually looking for more time in our lives. We're looking for more fulfillment. And really that's what is, like I said, motivating us. And there's nothing more profound a source of fulfillment than finding that within ourselves in the stillness. And so, you won't miss out, and you certainly won't stop doing things. It's almost impossible for you as a meditator of this technique to be unsuccessful. As Oprah Winfrey says, it's only from that space, and she does the same technique. She says, only from that space will you create your best work and your best life. And that's what we're here for, is creating a great life.
Absolutely. So I have a question around the corporate workplace. And, what do you feel that the corporate workplace actually needs to stop doing, and what do they need to start doing so that they can actually create a more effective strategy to support their employees cope with workplace-related stress and mental health challenges?
It's a great question, isn't it? So we're just about to rewrite the blueprint for the entire world's corporate sector right here. Look, it's really simple. I think we need to understand what a company is, what a corporate sector is. It's not, there's no companies really. There's just groups of people going to a building that has a logo on top of it, or has a share price or the bottom line. But really, it's just a group of people. And those people are only capable to do so much based upon the state of mind that they're in and the state of their nervous system and the state of their body. If they're tired, cranky, stressed, and overwhelmed, you're really not going to extract, and I'll use that term politely, extract the best out of those people for your bottom line, which is ultimately for most companies, the ultimate purpose. I think we need to get clear on our why. Why do we do what we do? Why does a company do what it does? And, I love people like Steve Jobs, who are so inspiring, to leave a dent in the universe and to leave a legacy that we look back on and go, that company did amazing things for this planet, and they contributed to the wellness of their staff. They contributed to the wellness of the world. And I think that's really important to take in the process of what it is they're doing rather than the end goal. And the process is about looking after their staff and making sure that we give them the opportunities to be happy, vital, healthy. Now, I worked for my company for 26 years, and my colleagues worked for that company for 20 to 25 years. Most of my colleagues in that company have been there for 20 years plus, most of them, which is quite remarkable. This is a finance broking company where we just, traded a lot of money and turned over lots of products and bonds and swaps and currencies. But they understood the importance of the value of the staff, because really without the staff, the company was nothing. Like I said, a company is not a logo, it's a group of people. And if you don't have a group of people, then you don't have a company. So, they gave us personal trainers. They gave us, a chef that made us breakfast and lunch. They gave us, massage came around. We had, people looking after us. And it was just, they understood the importance of looking after their members. And we were very happy to reciprocate that exchange and be loyal to that company. So I think companies really need to understand the relationship between the company and the people that work for the company is actually the same thing.
I think that what you said before about, attrition rate these days, the turnover of staff these days, to stay with a company for 20 years, 26 years is just these days unheard of.
Yeah.
Let alone
Yeah.
even how many career changes somebody will now have in a lifetime, versus what used to be the case.
Yeah, it's funny. I just was doing some research on some stats yesterday. Funnily enough, we're talking about this now. And the Mercer Human Resources study came up with an understanding that the attrition of human resources, so that's turnover of staff, is costing Australian business between $40 and $80 billion a year, simply because people are just not staying in their jobs that long. And I was actually having a conversation with my mate last night at dinner, who was talking to me about how he wants to, he's starting to look for another job. I said, why? You're on such a good wicket, you're earning good money, you're having a good time. He goes, I don't know, I've been there for like 5 years now. It's like, yeah, but so what? He goes, well, 5 years is a long time to be in one job. I'm like, since when? And there's no other reason than the fact that he's been there for a period of time that he feels he should move. And there's a conditioning to think that we're not being successful. We're not, we're not thriving. We're not, it's almost bad on our resume if we've been in a company for too long. So I think we need to change that mindset.
Absolutely. Tom, I would love to hear about your Zen Academy. Can you give us just an outline of the 12-week transformational leadership? And I know that it's very much based in the corporate workplace. Is that correct? That's really where it's going to get the most traction. Is that what you're hoping?
You know what? It's interesting. It could easily be rolled out in the corporate workplace, but it was probably more for individuals that feel the capacity to be a leader. This could be a scout leader, it could be a soccer leader, it could be a writer, it could be a blogger, it could be someone who wants to put podcasts out, it could be someone who wants to set up a company, or someone that is a company. It really is about anyone that wants to recognize within them the capacity to lead. And what does leadership mean? It's to inspire, to leave a sphere of influence of positivity. And so it can really relate to CEOs of high-end corporate programs. and it can relate to a 15-year-old kid that wants to learn how to be a blogger. It's about recognizing that leadership's not what you do. Really, it's about your consciousness and the perception of yourself. Most of us have the talents and the skill sets to be a leader. We just don't have the belief systems. And the Zen Academy primarily is about the acorn has the capacity to be an oak tree. It just needs germination. And Zen Academy is about germinating the seed within you that is the oak tree of a leader, and letting that flourish and blossom and inspiring you through some guidance and mentoring and some practical understandings about what it is to be a leader and how to manage effectively leadership. So that's really the goal of the Zen Academy, is to inspire and give birth to lots of people who are leaders in the world to shift this paradigm that we're currently in and take it to the next level.
It's certainly something that we are crying out for. We need it, and we need to make that paradigm shift. And it's really going to be programs like this and the dedication that you have and your organization at the Stillness Project has to roll out programs that feel really accessible. And I really want to iterate that again to, our listeners, because, you were somebody who never even had in their consciousness the idea of meditating, never even had in their consciousness an idea of creating me time, creating space in which you could actually be more. And, I really, really just want to drill home to people who feel the same, that are caught up in the rat race and, feel like it's Groundhog Day. And that, are out there, making a living, bringing home the bacon, so to speak, and feel like nothing's ever going to change. Yet, well, unless you do something differently, nothing does ever change. And Tom, you're, a beautiful example and an absolute inspiration to somebody who was there, at the top of their game, probably couldn't, wish or want for anything more. But as you said, we continue to rub up against contrast until we realize what it is that actually does fulfill us and give us a sense of meaning and purpose. And we keep on doing what we need to do until we realize what that is for ourselves. That's the beautiful experience that we're all here having. So I hope that people can really connect with your story and see that there is hope, there is opportunity, there is a way to do things differently. And for people who want to connect with you and the work that you do from the Stillness Project, then we encourage them to go and check you out on your website and to go and check the Zen 12-week program out and see if, what they read and listen to is something that perhaps might just be that doorway that they need to walk through that starts to change their perception and therefore their reality in a direction in which they want to go, which is actually healthier and more supportive for what they want to create. So we thank you very much for your time. I have one last question. It's being asked to all of our speakers because we're creating a very powerful Healthy Me Summit's affirmation book. We really acknowledge the power of neuroscience. It's now, scientifically proven to us that our biology and physiology, it becomes a representation of what we tell ourselves every day. And so I'd love, first of all, to find out whether or not in your stages of transformation earlier on, when you were coming out of a very deep, dark depression, did you have an I am affirmation that you look back at realizing that, wow, yes, I did actually tell myself this every day and that helped me? Or is that something that you perhaps use more consciously now?
There was some motivation that I felt inspired me through the teaching and the understanding. Of course, the important part of the course that I teach, which was the one I did as well 20 years ago, is that you get a lot of knowledge around the truth of this meditation practice. And it was that understanding about what was beyond my thoughts and my body, this pure consciousness realm, which was this fundamental truth, not the dogma and the memes and the ideology inside my head, but a truth beyond all of that. And there was a beautiful Sanskrit word or phrase that I very much resonated with, which I still use today, and that is yogastha kuru kamani. And the meaning of that is established in being, perform action. And being is this invincibility that we have, not the fragility we have in our personality, our egoic state, in our nervous system, and our body. Of course, there's limitations and fragilities and all sorts of vulnerabilities and all of that. But beyond all of that, there is a space of pure consciousness and stability and non-change and permanence and formlessness. And when I connect with that in the stillness, it became my sort of sanctuary of peace and calm that I could then lay as my foundation of life. And of course, I didn't get that immediately, but the fact that I knew it was there was the motivation and the incentivization for me to actually continue to go to my practice, to sit in the chair and sit in my stillness. And eventually, over time, we stabilize that, and it becomes an ever-present reality that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, through regularity of practice in stillness, we eventually stabilize Yoga-style Kurukamani. We establish ourselves in being, and from there we build our actions. And that's truly a great way to live life, I feel, because it's one that is filled with fulfillment, and it takes the pressure off seeking fulfillment out there.
And so if you could translate that into an I am statement for your life today, and what you would remind yourself, what would your I am become?
Very, very simple, and it's going to sound very cheesy, I'm sure, because we have all sorts of connotations with this word today, with white fluffy teddy bears and red roses and heartache and pain and all sorts of things. But really, it comes down to one simple thing. I am love. There's nothing more than that. I am simply the embodiment of love, and we just got to shed the layers that are impeding our ability to connect and feel that. And when we do that, eventually we'll feel that it's always within us.
Well, deep down there has to be some truth. It's the most written about, the most
Absolutely.
sung about, the most talked about. So the word has depth and breadth beyond our knowing of ourselves. So Tom, again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your experience. And we really, truly believe that in doing so, you're going to be an inspiration to so many people, and for where they are, and to change the direction of where they want to go.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Thanks, and thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Tom.